Alrighty, we are back with Catalyst, Chapter 10 by Lisa Beeson. I just tried to film this and I ran out of storage, but I forgot to delete the old ones. So here we go, Chapter 10. Alrighty. Hold on, goatsies, I'll let you out soon. Val stretched out the crick in her neck, her eyes swimming after counting item after item in the back of the storeroom. She glanced down at her watch. Oh, suck, I gotta go. Jumping up, she searched the room for Alvaro, finally finding him up by the boxes of napkins and condiments. All right, I'm splitting. You're good to do the rest, right? Great, she said while unceremoniously dumping the clipboard with her inventory list in his lap and turning to go. Pardon me. Oh, lordy. The scratchiness and the stuffiness will not leave me alone. It's been like 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And to those who might say, go to the doctor. To go to the doctor would be like an entire day of walking to do that. So no, I will just let my body heal slowly and naturally. Let's continue. Boys, that's a little loud. You know the drill. If Randall asks, just say I'm in the bathroom with girl issues. Hey, Val, wait! He called loudly after. Boys. A little quieter, please. Hey, Val, wait! He called loudly after her. She spun back around and glared at him. Why don't you yell a little louder? She whispered fiercely. Sorry, he said, wincing and lowering his voice. But I don't think you should go out this time. Why? Did you have a vision saying that I shouldn't? The kid was a spaz, but his visions were no joke. No, not specifically, he conceded. But, ugh, I don't have time for this. Don't be soft, Al. Man up and cover for me. I gotta get out and let off some steam. Or would you rather I turn that pent-up energy on you? His face paled in fear, and he shook his head vehemently. No, I don't want that, but just be back on time, he pleaded. I don't want to get in trouble. Don't wet your pants, gypsy boy. I'll be back before it's time to go back to the House of Freaks, she said with an exasperated roll of her eyes. Inventory usually took hours, especially when Alvaro was doing it by himself. With that settled, she walked swiftly away before he had a chance to delay her any further. Val stealthily made her way through the back of the knock, and just as she was about to escape out the door that led to the back alley, she heard someone coming. Thinking it was Randall, she froze, her heart pounding her chest. Not tonight. He was supposed to be in his office going over accounting stuff. But it was just Alvaro again. Val, wait! He called in a harsh whisper. What now? She breathed out angrily. Just keep an eye out for anything with the logo of the Mad Hatter with swirls for eyes. I don't know what it means, but just be careful, he said, shrugging his shoulders uncertainly. The hell if she was going to let his vague-ass premonition ruin her night. Fine, I'll beware the Mad Hatter, she said impatiently. Now get back there before you really do get us in trouble. He nodded and ran back to the storeroom, taking a deep breath to calm her nerves. Val got the thick cardstock strip out of her pocket. She walked out and carefully fit the card just right against the door jamb as she silently closed the door. It was important that it couldn't be seen from the outside, but it prevented the door from latching and locking her out. She figured this was way better than leaving it propped open with something. She just wanted to sneak out, not entice unsavory types to rob the place. Oh, don't start with your sisters. Leave them alone. With the door shut and satisfied that it looked all right, she stuffed her hands into the pockets of her jacket and quickly walked out of the alley towards the street and away from the cafe. Val loved the sense of freedom she felt while walking down the street on her own. through the lambent pools pouring down from the streetlights. The evening sky was a wash of bruise-colored darkness that blanketed the city in mystery and granted her blessed anonymity. She couldn't wait to finally be an adult and set off on her own. Just 5 more months until I turn 18, and then I can finally feel free like this all the time. Scion's Keep had become more like a prison than a place of residence. They didn't let the kids go anywhere except the Knock, unless it was with one of the Reinhold brothers, and they were always busy, so field trips were rare. She hated feeling caged in and dependent on other people, but she wasn't stupid. Having a full belly and a roof over your head was better than being a miner, scratching out a living on the streets. So Scion's Keep would have to do for now, until she found something better. The place had been all right at first. It was definitely better than the nightmare parade of subpar foster families and group homes she'd had to endure most of her life. Gordon, Marin, and the rest of them had actually treated her like she was wanted, like she was special. And instead of laughing at her when she had told them that she'd like to learn how to play the drums, they bought her a kit and set up a room for her to play in. They said it was a great idea to have a creative outlet for her anger issues. George even took the time to teach her how to play guitar as well. Everything was cool. But then the clouds parted, and God pointed down at her and said, "I hate you, Valencia Marlowe." He just couldn't stand for her to be happy. So he dropped Claudia back into her life. Beautiful, spoiled, entitled Claudia. I swear I can't talk with the stuffiness. Beautiful, spoiled, entitled Claudia, sweeping in like a perfect angel and making Val look like an unstable monster in comparison. Claudia already had the fairy tale childhood, growing up with her mummy and daddy dearest in their millionaire mansion. But that wasn't enough for her, was it? No. She had to come all the way up here to take Scion's Keep away from Val as well, rubbing in the point that she would always have everything and Val deserved nothing. And now, after what happened this morning, Claudia's probably turned Ari against her too. That was the worst part. She'd felt that Ari had actually seen past her walls to the real Val. The Val she felt she was always meant to be. And Ari had seemed to actually like what she saw. She wasn't scared or repulsed like everyone else. But seeing Claudia in the doorway had flicked the switch in Val's brain, and the ugliness took over. She couldn't help the rage that boiled up like hot tar in her veins and made her hate everything and everyone. It just happened. Val knew the way she acted was irrational and made her look like a lunatic. But sometimes she just couldn't keep the rage in check. Maybe I really am as unstable and evil as everyone thinks I am. She couldn't help thinking about what her mother had said about how the two of them had been cursed since the moment of Val's conception. She had said that God had forsaken them because Val had been conceived in sin, and Henry Marlowe was the devil. After Claudia's mother found out about the pregnancy, she had blacklisted Val's mother, and anyone in Palm Springs that could afford a maid wouldn't hire her. It didn't help that she was in the States illegally and had no family there to help her out. So eventually she had become desperate, doing anything she could, no matter how debasing, to earn money and spending most of what she earned on booze and drugs to help her live with what she had become. They moved from crappy motel to crappy motel, and by the time Val was 4, they were practically penniless. The only reason they weren't homeless was because of the generosity of one of my mother's friends, who had let the two of them crash in her tiny apartment. Her mother's friend insisted that Val had called her Tia Rosa, even though they weren't related. But she treated Val abysmally. Not that Val's mother cared. She already thought that her daughter was the bane of her existence. But like always, Val had made things so much worse. Tia Rosa had smacked her unnecessarily hard for some minor offense she couldn't even remember now, and her mother didn't even blink. She just continued watching TV in a drugged-out stupor, like it didn't even happen. Tia's ridiculously long fake nails had cut Val's cheek. When she started to cry, her mother had told her to shut up because she couldn't hear her show over Val's wailing. Val had quit crying, not because her mother told her to, but because her outrage and anger became overwhelming. She felt the low rumble start to build up within her. It was such a powerful feeling that she couldn't contain it, And all of a sudden, the things hanging on the walls and sitting on the shelves began to tremble and shake like in an earthquake. When Val realized what she was doing, the shaking stopped, but she was terrified. She didn't understand what was happening. Nothing like that had ever happened to her before. Her mother knew that it had come from Val, but instead of comforting her frightened child, she and Tia had looked at her in sheer horror, like Val was some kind of demon that had just crawled up from the depths of hell. Tia had made the sign of the Holy Cross while Val's mother whispered, "La hija del diablo," and backed away towards the door. They had looked at each other for a second, making a silent agreement, and then grabbed their purses and ran out of there as fast as they could, locking the door behind them. Her mother had just left and locked Val in that tiny apartment like she was some horrible beast. Neither of them came back for days. Val had only been 4 years old and left all alone with hardly any food. She remembered being so incredibly frightened and hungry. What kind of mother leaves her small child like that? One that thinks her child is the literal daughter of the devil, that's who. Keeping her head down as her ugly, destructive thoughts clouded her mind, Val couldn't help noticing a couple of drunken guys eyeing her as they stumbled past. She glared back at them, daring them to mess with her. Yeah, she was small, but she could take care of herself if she had to. It had been almost 5 years since the last time a guy hurt her, and she'd be damned before she let it happen again. Never again. Her cheap prepaid phone started to vibrate in her pants pocket. She got it out to see a text from Liam. "Where are you? Are you coming?" Val cursed and then texted that she was on her way. He sent another text. "Come to the back door." She had 15 minutes to get to the bar where the band was playing before it was time for their set. She'd blow her chance to be in Liam's band if she was late. They were only letting her play tonight because their drummer had flaked from their last practice, per usual, and she told them she could play. She'd still been hyped up from whatever Ari had done to everyone that day in the courtyard, and she had absolutely killed it. They'd been so impressed that they told her she could play with them on their next gig. This was her chance. This was what she wanted to do with her life. Music was the only thing that couldn't be taken from her. Music was everything. Picking up the pace, she ran the rest of the way. Thankfully, it was only about 5 blocks from the knock, so she made it with about 7 minutes to spare. She saw Liam's van parked in the alley, so she banged on the back door, expecting Liam to open it for her. But instead it was opened by a huge middle-aged meathead with a unibrow and a rapidly receding hairline. He looked down at her and instantly dismissed her like she was trash. "Get out of here, kid. This place is for adults only," he said. "This is not the night to mess with me, douche and shoot. Ugh. This is not the nice... Ugh. Blah. Hello. Oh, your paws are all wet. You done played in the water, huh? Hi, handsome. Oh, my handsome babies. Oh, my handsome guy. I love you. I love you. Mwah. Oh, my silly little baby butt. All right, hop down. Hop down. Oh, you're so cute. Mwah. So hop down. Woo. This is not the night to mess with me, douche shoot. I'm supposed to be here, so get out of the way, she said, trying to push past him. The guy had the nerve to laugh in her face as he shoved her back. "I don't think so, Mighty Mouse. Get out of here before I call the cops on your little ass." "You're the ass Nick," Liam said loudly, cutting her off as he came up behind him. "It's okay, man. She's with the band. She's the new drummer I told you about," he said, while giving Val a look of warning to shut her mouth. Nick looked skeptically back down at her. "This is your drummer?" he asked, arching his unibrow condescendingly. It took all of Val's willpower not to kick the smug bastard in the family jewels. Liam nodded. "Yeah, she looks a lot younger than she really is. Come on, Val," he said, motioning her in. "Everyone's already setting up." Nick reluctantly let her pass, and she couldn't resist the urge to knock him in the gut with her elbow as she walked by. You better get that little girl under control, Liam, before her big mouth gets her into big trouble, he warned, Val responding by giving Nick the finger as she continued to walk away. I will, Nick, Liam promised, and then smacked Val's hand down when he saw what she was doing. Quit it, Val! What's wrong with you? He asked harshly under his breath. Nick's the owner of the bar. We're only playing here by his good graces. Un momento, por favor. They're just playing, but they're a noisy little bunch. Nick's the owner of the bar. We're only playing here by his good graces. Val cursed under her breath. How was I supposed to know the owner would be opening the back door? You didn't tell me. She felt bad, but the hell if she was going to apologize for sticking up for herself. I shouldn't have had to. All you had to do was say you were with the band. Why do you always have to start stuff with people? He's the one who started it. Owner or no, that guy is an ass. Whatever, he said, shaking his head in exasperation. Just try not to piss anyone else off tonight. Val kept her mouth shut to prevent herself from making things worse. She hated feeling like Liam was mad at her. He was the only person she actually considered a friend. He was about 6 years older than her, tall, skinny, and smoked like a chimney. But he was cool enough to think she was interesting and wanted her to hang out with him and his friends. And he was all about hitting on guys, which meant that he was safe. To top it all off, he was now giving her this chance. And she's nearly blown it twice. Get it together, Val. Liam led her through the dark, dingy corridors crowded with people milling around and waiting in line for the bathrooms. As they passed by a couple sketchy-looking characters, a psycho-eyed guy and a Skeletor-looking girl wearing way too much makeup and perfume. Val felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up with a strange, eerie feeling that put her on edge. She shook it off, thinking that it was just some of Alvaro's jitters that must have rubbed off on her. We were scared you weren't going to show, but I managed to convince Eddie not to call up Hunter, Liam said, looking back at her as they made their way into the main area of the bar. Val swore under her breath again. Hunter was their regular drummer. Thanks, but I got this. I just had a little trouble getting away is all, she said loud enough to be heard over the din. It was surprisingly packed for a crummy dive bar, but she figured it was in anticipation for the band going on after them, which had a pretty large local following. You got the stuff for after the show? Liam asked while miming smoking a blunt as they weaved their way through the crowd. Val nodded. Right here. She patted her jacket where the pot she'd gotten from George's greenhouse sat in a concealed inner pocket with her drumsticks. She gave herself the mental note to stop by a drugstore on the way back to get the candy she'd promised the twins as payment for getting it for her. Those kids didn't do clandestine favors for free. But this is it for a while. I don't want them to start noticing that some is missing. Liam nodded that he understood. I still can't get over that. What kind of school grows marijuana in their greenhouse? He asked, shaking his head in disbelief. A very special one, Val said. You have no idea, man. The stage was basically just a raised platform in a back corner of the bar, and the other guys in the band were already doing instrument and amp checks, so she quickly went over to get prepped. Liam had brought his own drum kit because it wasn't like Val could bring hers, and the kick drum had the band's name on it, the Calabos Crusaders, stenciled on it. Manny, the bass player, gave her a nod of greeting, while Eddie, the lead guitarist, shook his head and pointed at his watchless wrist to emphasize that she was cutting it close. She ignored Eddie in an attempt to do what Liam asked to not piss anyone else off, and nodded back at Manny. She sat down behind the drums and took out her sticks. Ignoring the nervousness suddenly tying her stomach in knots, she focused on sliding off her jacket, and then carefully folding it and placing it on the ground safely by her feet instead. As she was pulling her massive curls up into a ponytail, Shauna, the keyboardist, came over and handed her a copy of the set list. Val looked it over and saw that it only consisted of the couple of songs that she'd practiced with them. Val nodded to her in thanks, while she lowered her microphone to a more comfortable position so she could help sing backup. Val loved their music style. Val loved their style of music. Not only was Liam a strangely charismatic frontman and lead singer, he was a genius when it came to taking sugary pop songs and tweaking them in a way that made them sound dark and slightly sinister. Liam had told her that they took the name Calibos from the old Clash of the Titans movie. Calibos was the vainglorious son of Thetis, who Zeus had punished by turning him into a grotesque, twisted monster. And Val felt like she fit right in. When everyone was ready, Liam went up to his mic stand to introduce the band. "Glad you all could come out to see us tonight," he said, and the crowd's chatter died down a bit, their eyes honing in on the band in curiosity. "We are the Calibos Crusaders," he announced dramatically. Then he glanced back at the band and gave the signal to start the first song, which was a disturbingly twisted version of a Taylor Swift song. The audience seemed to dig it, and a small group began to congregate in the open space in front of the stage area. Val tried to channel the feeling she had playing this morning by losing herself in the music. It wasn't the same as with Ari. Nothing she could do on her own could compare to that, but the band was still killing it. Fett and his companion sat nursing their beers at a table in the bar. It was close enough to the stage to have a good view of the band without being so close as to be overpowered by the loud, cacophonous music. Not that he was paying much attention to the music. He was too busy relishing the vitality still singing in the veins of his newly acquired vessel. He knew the zestful stirring wouldn't last long, since this vessel was only a caste above the dregs, and he was hopelessly addicted to methamphetamines. But it was young and spry, and so much more satisfying than the elderly, derelict vessel he last inhabited back in New Orleans. Nakar had only granted him this probationary promotion so he could accomplish his mission. Fett was enjoying the respite so much that he was absolutely determined that nothing was going to keep him from getting the girl, even though he could already feel the itchiness spiking under his skin for another fix. He was disciplined enough that he could ignore it for now. He was going to get the girl to Nakar no matter what. No mistakes this time. I will not fail again. He glanced over at Nasith, sitting beside him, who was greedily breathing in the delicious buzz of lust and aggravation coming off the patrons of the bar. When Sesfa and Haksha had gone down to New Orleans to include Fett in his endeavor, they had trusted Nasith enough to leave him in charge of keeping an eye on things. Fett hadn't worked together with Nasith in ages, but from what he remembered, the wretch could be counted on. "So what's the mark? The one with wild hair and the chip on her shoulder?" Fett asked as he pointed to the tiny little thing playing the drums with the top of his beer bottle. "She's the one that lives where the girl is being kept?" "That's her," Seth said with a nod of his head. "And according to my vessel's memories, she is ripe for the picking. Very damaged," he said as he tapped the side of his head. "So with that, in combination with Jashar's drug, Saji should have no problem claiming the vessel." "And you're sure you won't have any problem getting close?" They'd already been all over this when Fett first arrived in Toronto, but he wanted to be absolutely sure this would all go off without a hitch. The girl never left the building, so the only way to get to her was to get them in and act fast. The progeny of the invaders were harder to possess than other humans, but it wasn't impossible, and the payoff was worth the trouble. Sazi was about to get a treat. Nasith nodded his head confidently. "I claimed this vessel from a bandmate. There's no ill will between them, so it won't be a problem." "Good," Fett said, after a gratifying swig of his beer. He glanced towards a shadowy corner of the bar, where Sesfa, Haksha, and Sazi were mingling with the patrons. Plenty of perspectives in this fine establishment. Fett was sure that Jashar would be thrilled to know his drug is gaining ground in other cities. Besides the drug helping Sazi with the possession of the mark, the more perspectives they got addicted to it and sent to Jashar, the more of his favor they would gain. No one was better at seducing and subduing hostiles than him. "The girl will be brought to heel, and then we will present her to Nakar. I will be rising to the higher castes in no time." Everything was falling into place. Now he only had to wait. After the band finished their last song to the sounds of whistles and applause, Val was riding on a natural high. She'd nailed it, and as far as she was concerned, the band had never sounded better. They had to make her a permanent member of the band after a performance like that. After they broke down all their instruments and loaded them into the back of Liam's van, Val brought out her stash from the inner pocket of her jacket and passed the previously made joints around to everyone, to a chorus of cheers. Val allowed herself some pot every once in a while, for a treat. She'd vowed never to get into the hard stuff like her mother, but a little pot every now and then wasn't a big deal. George just had it growing up there on the roof, and it gave her a break from her normal agitation and helped soothe her nerves. Manny lit the end of his joint with Liam's lighter and inhaled. After holding the smoke in for a couple seconds, he blew it out and smiled. "You're the best, Val. This is some potent stuff," he coughed out, and everyone agreed. George is good at what he does. Liam came up beside her, giving her a playful nudge with his hip. "Hey, you did great tonight. It was a really good show." "If you can get yourself to practices more frequently than Hunter, I say you're in," Shauna said as she leaned against the back of Liam's van next to Eddie. Val allowed herself a small grin of satisfaction before the back door of the bar opened up, and out walked Hunter. "Seriously?" After blowing out a smoke ring, Eddie said, "Speak of the devil." Val immediately went into a guarded stance, ready for the impending onslaught that was sure to come. But Hunter surprised her by applauding them all with a slow clap. "Well done, guys. Well done. You killed it out there." Val eyed the former drummer warily as she leaned against the wall and finished her joint. His appearance had deteriorated a lot since the last time she saw him, which was only about a month ago. His skin looked pasty like he was sick, and the whites of his eyes were really red. But the strangest thing was that he gave off that creepy feeling she had felt earlier when she had first gotten to the bar. There was something about him that just seemed off. He went over to Manny and tried to bum a toke off him. "You mind, dude?" "I don't know, man. You're looking kind of rough," Manny said with an uneasy smile, obviously not wanting to catch whatever illness Hunter had. "Where have you been? You sort of disappeared off the face of the earth the past couple weeks." "Just living life, man," Hunter said as he took the joint from Manny's hand anyway. When he tried to hand it back after he took in a long, slow drag, Manny told him he could keep it. After another toke, he said, "You guys gotta try this new stuff that's going around now. Gives you a sweet high." "What, are you a drug dealer now, Hunter?" Shauna asked with a chuckle. Hunter gave her a non-committal shrug in response. "I just wanted to come out here to apologize for not showing up to practices the past couple weeks. I've had stuff going on that I couldn't get out of. You know how it goes." He nodded towards Val. "You guys deserve a drummer that'll be there for you." "So you're not mad about us replacing you?" Liam asked cautiously. "Nah, man. It's all good. In fact, to show you guys that there are no hard feelings, I'll buy you all around." "What about Val? She's underage," Sean asked. "It wouldn't be right to leave our new drummer out." "Don't worry about it," Val said, trying not to sound sulky. "I gotta get back anyway." Besides, the way Hunter was looking at her made her skin crawl, and she didn't want to have to liquefy his brains in front of everyone. "It should be fine," Hunter said with a dismissive shake of his head. "The place is packed. If we keep her in a back corner, no one will know." "Come on, Val, hang out with us," Liam entreated. "It'll be fun, and we deserve to celebrate after that performance." It was hard to say no to Liam after what happened with Nick earlier. Val gave a cursory glance down at her watch and saw that she still had some time before she had to go back to freak jail. It was probably just the effects of the pot kicking in and lowering her defenses, but Liam was right. She deserved this. She might as well cement her spot in the band and enjoy herself while she could. "Okay, but I gotta head out in a half hour." Liam smiled down at her. "That's my girl." Everyone closed ranks around Val as they all walked back into the bar and found a surprisingly empty table with some prime real estate near the stage. The next band was already playing, and their mob of fans was crowding the space in front of the stage, bouncing and bobbing their heads to the rhythm of the bass-heavy music. Hunter went up to the bar and came back with a tray full of Jaeger bombs. The drink usually included a pint of beer along with the shot of Jägermeister, but Hunter instead came back with glasses full of energy drink. A couple friends of mine that just came back from Germany told me about this. They call it a turbo Jaeger. The caffeine gets you drunk quicker. They were all hitting the giggly phase of their cannabis high, making the effect of dropping the shots of Jägermeister into the energy drink that much more entertaining. They all clinked their glasses together in cheers, and then proceeded to chug their drinks down with abandon. When they were all done, Hunter stood up and shouted, "Another!" and went back to the bar for more. Between the pot and the alcohol, Val was flying high. She must have looked like it too, because Liam and Manny were laughing and calling her a lightweight. She just laughed along with them, because she didn't care. She didn't care about anything, and it was wonderful. Nothing else mattered, only right now, and right now she wanted to dance. The thumping of the bass was vibrating through her bones and giving her the irresistible urge to move and jump around. She slid off her jacket, sloppily placed it on the back of her chair, and joined in with the throng in the area in front of the stage, while bouncing along to the rhythm of the song. Liam and Shauna followed her, and the three of them were having a great time, giving themselves over to the music and dancing with the crowd. After a couple songs, the band's set was over, but then a DJ went up and began pumping out loud electro music, and they kept dancing. Shauna and Liam found guys to dance up next to, but Val didn't mind. She didn't need anyone else. She didn't even mind the people bumping into her as they moved around. Then she felt a hard slap on the back of her neck. "What the hell?" she yelled as she spun around, but her assailant had already taken off and blended into the crowd. Liam looked over at her with concern. "What's wrong?" he mouthed to her. "Someone slapped the back of my neck," she yelled above the noise, moving closer to him. He turned her around and then lifted up the loose, sweaty strands of hair off her neck and cursed. "You just got tagged," he said into her ear as he peeled something off her neck. "Someone put a dissolvable tab on you." He looked at the strange plastic-like film in his hand like he was trying to decide what it was. "They must have mixed it with DMSO so it could be absorbed through your skin into your bloodstream. Somehow they attached it to this film to make it like a sticker. Ingenious, really," he said, shaking his head in wonder, and then flicked the plastic film off his fingers onto the floor. Val cursed and tried to rub it off. She just wanted to have a good time, not OD on some strange club drug. Liam shook his head at her. "It's too late. DMSO works super fast. Whatever was mixed with it has already been absorbed. I've never seen that brand before. It's probably just acid. The only thing you can do is sit back and enjoy the ride." Val didn't want to enjoy the ride. She wanted to get back to the knock before she got in trouble. She tried to see what time it was, but she couldn't focus on the numbers on her watch. They were all blurry and bouncing around. She held it up towards Liam's face. "What time is it?" He grabbed her wrist to keep it still and then squinted down at the watch face. "It's only 10:27. The night's still young." "Damn it, how the hell did it get that late? Alvaro's probably narked me out already." Then she gasped. "Alvaro! What did the logo on the blotter look like?" She yelled up at Liam. "It looks like the Mad Hatter from that old Disney cartoon, Alice in Wonderland. Have fun going down the rabbit hole, baby girl," he said with a smile as he twirled around and went back to dancing with his boy toy. Val's skin tightened in apprehension. What was it Alvaro said about the Mad Hatter? Was it bad? She couldn't think straight. Everything was starting to get warbly and out of focus. All she knew was that she had to get out of there. She tried to get back to their table so she could get her jacket, but the floor began to tilt and sway, and she couldn't help knocking into people and chairs on her way. She tried as hard as she could to focus amidst the people cursing and shoving her, and she eventually managed to grab hold of her jacket. At least she hoped it was her jacket. The room felt like it was spinning around, making her dizzy and disoriented. Strange funhouse faces were popping in and out of her field of vision, and a warped version of Liam's voice kept repeating over and over in her head. Have fun going down the rabbit hole, baby girl. Have fun going down the rabbit hole. She felt like she was going to be sick. She needed fresh air. Stumbling towards what she thought was the front of the bar, she started to feel discouraged. For some reason, it felt impossibly far away. She was just about to give up when she felt hands on her shoulders guiding her towards the door. Once Val made it to the sidewalk outside, she greedily took in a lungful of fresh air, and she felt completely amazing. She was happy. She was free. Nothing could bring her down ever again. But the dizziness continued, and now instead of the bar moving around, the stuff outside was moving and morphing into something like those old cartoons where everything was anthropomorphically smiling and bouncing in the background to happy music. The whole thing was bizarrely hilarious, and she couldn't help the bray of laughter that escaped out of her mouth. Then she felt the nausea return, and she quickly snapped it closed. The hand started guiding her again, so Val looked back as she stumbled along, and there was a flicker of recognition. At first, she couldn't remember where she'd seen that girl before, but then she got a whiff of the cloying scent surrounding her and realized it was one of the sketchy-looking people from the bathroom line earlier. It was the girl who was wearing too much makeup and perfume, but now she had a funhouse face, and Val was immediately repulsed. "Get the hell off of me! I don't know you!" Val yelled as she tried to push the sketchy girl away from her, but it only caused Val to stumble backwards and fall on her ass. Val was laughing uncontrollably now. Everything was so ridiculous and hilarious. The sketchy girl smiled down at her and helped her back up. "It's all right, honey. My name's Sassy, and I'm just trying to help you, okay?" "Pfft, Sassy," Val said, cracking up. "What kind of name is Sassy? Is it French?" I must have heard her wrong. She must have said Susie. Val knew in the back of her mind that she should be running away as fast as she could from the strange girl, but her voice was so soothing, like sweet caramel wrapping around her head, compelling Val to comply with anything she said. And Susie said that she wanted to help, so... "Just come with me and I'll make everything all better. You'd like that, wouldn't you, honey?" Sassy Susie cooed in Val's ear, guiding her towards what looked like a large cave of shadows that was suddenly looming in front of them. Val wanted everything to be all better. Everything was always so hard for her. She didn't want to deal with it anymore. She didn't want to deal with anything anymore. She wanted to feel like this all the time. So she let Sassy Susie guide her into the funhouse shadows as they passed through something that sounded like a curtain of plastic. It was hard to see in the darkness, not that she could focus on anything anyway. "Where are we? What are we doing here?" she asked into the echoey cavern before the toe of her boot caught on something hard on the ground and she nearly tripped. "We got you, Val. Just close your... Oh, no. We got you, Val. Just close your eyes," said a voice behind her that sounded a lot like Hunter. "Everything will be fine." "Hunter's here. If he's here, then that means the rest of the band must be here too, right?" She closed her eyes like she was told, and then she felt lots of hands take hold of her and lay her down on the wavering ground that refused to lay still. She heard the scratch of a match being lit, and she saw a flare of a reddish-orange glow through her eyelids that turned into the sinuous movements of a fire nymph, beckoning Val to follow her into the darkness. The soothing female voice kept whispering in her ear, "Let go and be free. No more pain. No more heartache. No more anger or regret. Let go and break free of your chains into this wretched world forever." Val wanted to be free. She didn't want to hurt anymore. No one loved her anyway. No one cared if she lived or died. She was cursed. She was a monster. She was worthless. What was the point? "I want to be free. she whispered through a sob. Then let go and let me in. There's nothing keeping you here. Let go. The sweet caramel voice echoed in Val's head. Okay, she thought, and surrendered herself over to the voice, following the fire nymph as it flit and frolicked into the dark abyss. Suddenly she felt a strange pushing sensation. An oily iciness was entering through her chest and spreading through her limbs, and she couldn't feel her arms or legs anymore. They were weightless, and the feeling was moving up her spine and into her brain. What's going on? This isn't right. Then images and scenes from her life began to flash through her consciousness. Her mother looking at her in horror and disgust. Her father's rejection. Kids at school and the foster homes bullying her. Stan sneaking into her room at night. Then his dead body after she'd finally fought back. Stop it! The icy tendrils were forcing her to see these things. Forcing her to realize this life wasn't worth fighting for. Val was just about to give in when the darkness started pushing her out of her body, forcing her through what felt like a thin membrane and taking control. No! This is my body! Val forced herself to think of the things worth living for. The thrill of playing music with the band. The unequivocal joy of playing music with Ari. She wanted with all her heart to do that again. I want to live! I want to live! Val tried to scream, but her mouth and vocal cords weren't working anymore. She tried to open her eyes, but they felt glued shut. Her body wasn't obeying her, but she stubbornly dug in, refusing to abdicate any more of her body to the oily iciness. Then she heard the rumble of a deep male voice echo into the cavernous space around her. Let that child be! There was a clicking sound, and another male voice said, Get away from her right now, or I'll shoot. His voice held the authoritative confidence of a cop. Please, help me. The oily iciness receded, and Val's arms and legs felt like they were fallen back through the membrane, and they began to tingle painfully as though they had fallen asleep. Someone near her made a feral and human sound, and another voice hissed out, The Oracle's kin? And the bartender? The voice sounded genuinely baffled, and then turned savage. What the hell are you doing here? You will not stop me again! Get them! He ordered. There was a lot of movement and scuffling around her. Then the night exploded with ear-splitting cracks of 3 gunshots in rapid succession, followed by some screaming and high-pitched screeching sounds. She heard cursing, and the orange glow of the fire nymph disappeared with the sound of footsteps running away. Take care of the girl. I'll go after Fett, shouted the male voice that had... Oh, no. Take care of the girl. I'll go after Fett, shouted the male voice that had the gun, before she heard his footsteps run off in the direction the others had gone. Is he the Oracle's kin or the bartender? What the hell does that even mean? Nothing was making sense. Val was terrified and confused. She still couldn't move or talk, and her eyelids still felt as if they were glued shut. What the hell is happening? She felt huge hands quickly slide under her legs and back and lift her up, 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 miles into the air until she felt herself being cradled in large arms. Am I being saved by a giant? He must have started walking because it felt as though she was swaying in the limbs of a wind-blown tree. I got you, Cher, said the deep rumbling voice in a gentle, reassuring tone. You're gonna be just fine. His voice flowed like musical molasses in her ears. She wanted him to go on talking forever to keep the fear at bay. She felt safe in the giant's arms, but everything was still so jumbled and confused. What's going on? Why is he calling me Cher? Was I almost possessed by a demon? Is all that stuff really real? Was Mama right? Her body was slowly starting to obey her now, and she couldn't help the sob that bubbled up from her chest and leaked out of her eyes. She hated herself for crying like a baby and being stupid enough to let all this happen to her. She had never let herself get that depressed before, at least not enough that she'd want to give up and die. She was too stubborn and willful for that. "You're all right, Cher. No one's gonna hurt you now." He said it so convincingly that she almost believed him. She desperately wanted to believe him, but no one could promise something like that, especially to Val. People always found a way to hurt her. When Val was finally able to open her gummy eyelids, she saw bright, kind eyes and a dark face looking down at her. As he continued to quickly make his way through the city, his long, swift strides taking them away from the demons. "There you are," he said with a big, white-toothed smile. "Now where should I be taking you?" "The hospital," she thought automatically. But no, the hospital meant trouble. "I want to go home." Knock," she croaked out through rusty vocal cords that were just beginning to work for her again. "Where?" he asked, leaning in closer to hear her. "The Knock Cafe," she forced out, hoping he understood what she meant. He nodded and started to jog faster, holding her close to him like she was a small child. It was hard to think clearly with the world still spinning and bouncing all around her. But now, instead of it being happy and funny like it was earlier, everything was morphing into a nightmare world of hideous monsters and demons that were out to get her. She could control her arms now, so she wrapped them around the giant's neck and hid her face in his shoulder. She felt like she was 4 years old again, frightened and helpless against an impossibly scary world. "My giant will keep me safe. He promised that he would keep me safe." After what seemed like forever, the giant slowed down and gently lowered her down to the ground, leaned her up against something cool and smooth. He pounded his big fist against it, causing the surface to shudder and shake behind her. And he yelled, "Hello! This child needs help!" He pounded again. "Hello!" Then the sidewalk seemed to light up with a brilliant glare all around her, blinding her for a moment, and a big hand cradled her face. "Take care of yourself, Cher." Her giant was leaving her. "Don't go." "I have to go help my friend. Someone's coming right now to take care of you," he said in a rush before quickly running off into the darkness. "Don't leave me, giant. Everyone leaves me." The smooth surface behind her shuddered again, and she heard familiar voices call her name. They crouched down in front of her, and she saw that it was Wyatt and Randall. And Wyatt was opening up her eyelids with his fingers, looking intensely from one of her eyes to the other. "Yay, Wyatt. I know you, Wyatt. You live at home with me." But then the brothers began to morph into scary gargoyle creatures, and her brain decided that that was just too much to deal with. So it gave up and she passed out. Whew! That was the very long and exciting chapter 10. Oh my goodness. I'm going to see if I have enough battery to go on to chapter 11, but after 50 minutes of that, I don't think I'll have enough battery. I'm glad I made it through this. Yeesh. Well, thank you for joining us. Three subscribers I see now. Hi, subscribers. That's very exciting. I will see you all next time on chapter 11. Peace.